We use X-rays to make images that provide us with value in diagnosing and treatment planning our patient. However, X-rays are ionizing radiations, and exposure to ionizing radiation is associated with risks. In this video, I will describe the nature and magnitude of the risks associated with diagnostic dentomaxillofacial imaging and discuss approaches to communicate these risks to patients and other healthcare professionals. The consequences of ionizing radiation exposure are dependent on dose and the tissue exposed. However, from the perspective of diagnostic imaging, the only risk of concern is radiation-induced neoplasia. There is strong evidence that radiation causes cancer, and the risk of cancer induction increases linearly with dose. However, these effects have been observed at doses greater than 100 millisieverts. And we use this data to project risks from diagnostic radiation, which delivers considerably lower doses. The current paradigm of radiation protection is based on the linear no-threshold hypothesis, which predicts that there is a linear relationship between dose and the risk of cancer induction, even at the low doses used in diagnostic radiology. The hypothesis also considers that there is no threshold for causation. Thus, every radiological procedure that we do carries with it some risk. In dental diagnostic imaging, that risk is low and often negligible. Do note, however, that alternative models of risk prediction could markedly change our perception of risk from diagnostic imaging. And importantly, a change in the risk perception would also change our attitude towards use of diagnostic imaging. Worldwide, radiation protection agencies use the linear no-threshold hypothesis to predict cancer risk, and the risks described in this presentation are based on the assumptions of the linear no-threshold hypothesis. So here are some key points when considering radiation-associated cancer risks. Cancer induction is a stochastic effect. In the absence of a threshold, every radiological procedure we do carries with it some risk. Often, this risk is negligible. It is important that we recognize tissues in the head and neck that are sensitive to radiation-induced cancer and try to minimize the dose to these organs. Children are 3 times more sensitive to radiation-induced cancer, and this should be considered in our projections of cancer risk. Finally, remember that cancer risk is based on the effective dose, which is an estimate, and is not a precise indicator of individual risk. So how high are these cancer risks? The International Commission on Radiological Protection estimates that the cancer risk is 5.5% per sievert. Using this estimate, we can now calculate the estimated cancer risk from the radiological procedures that perform in dentistry. In order to help us understand the magnitude of radiation, let us step back and consider the sources of radiation exposure. All of us are exposed to background radiation. The major source of this radiation comes from radon, a radioactive gas that is released from the ground and enters homes, offices, and other buildings. Additional sources include terrestrial radiation, internal radionuclides that are ingested with food, and space radiation. In the United States, the average cumulative radiation from background sources is approximately 3.1 millisieverts per year. This amounts to 8.5 microgray per day, a number that we will use in subsequent slides to understand the magnitude of radiation exposure. In addition to background radiation, we are also exposed to radiation from other sources, predominantly from medical imaging. Note that dental imaging contributes a very small fraction of the dose from diagnostic imaging. This graphic depicts doses from common dental and medical radiographic examinations. The central axis shows the effective dose from the procedure and is plotted on a log scale. However, rather than use actual doses, you can convey the radiation exposure as an equivalent period of background radiation exposure. And that is where our figure of 8.5 microsieverts per day comes in. To further assist healthcare providers and patients understand the magnitude of radiation, the American College of Radiology has developed a categorization of relative radiation levels. Note that the dose boundaries for these levels differ between adults and children, and this is a reflection of the almost 3-fold increased radiation sensitivity in children. It is also useful to provide comparative radiation doses from life activities such as air travel. This allows the patient to place the magnitude of radiation and the associated risks in appropriate perspective. So how can we communicate risks to patients? First, allow the patient to express their concerns and do not minimize their concerns. Tell the patient why you need the radiograph and how it provides you with valuable information that you will use to diagnose and treat the patient. Of course, on your part, you should critically evaluate the need for imaging and make sure that you follow all guidelines and selection criteria to design an appropriate radiological examination. Remember that diagnostic imaging is based on the premise that the benefits of imaging will outweigh any associated radiation risks. Convey to the patient the methods that you use to minimize their radiation dose. This includes the use of constant potential X-ray units, digital sensors, rectangular collimation, and thyroid collars and protective aprons. And finally, communicate the dose and/or risk in a manner in which the patient can easily comprehend. With this information, most patients will willingly proceed with the radiological examination and will have their concerns clarified.